Welcome to the Panic Room, where we talk about all things panic-inducing. I am the Queen of Panic. Warning, some episodes may contain content that may be disturbing to others. Viewer discretion is advised. Now let the games begin. I've always been the quiet one, the shy one, the one who never spoke up, the one who'd never talked back, even when I knew the person or persons talking to me were wrong. Thankfully, I was never bullied. Being invisible to others has its benefits. The only person to even notice me without getting their attention first was Margaret, the new girl. She looked plain to others, but by God, she looked perfect to me. Long blonde hair tied up in a single ponytail with a white ribbon. No makeup or fancy clothes, just natural beauty. Of average height for a girl her age. Average measurements too, if I dared to ask. I thought nothing of her besides from her glowing beauty. But something she did would forever make me want her from then on. She talked to me. "Hi, I'm Margaret. What's your name?" she asked so cheerfully. While it may have been common in other schools, most new kids who came here kept to themselves. And the fact that the first student she talked to would be me, the nobody, the one who was shy, quiet, the one who was ignored, even by his own family.
Andy.
I replied back hesitantly. "Nice to meet you." She extended her hand out to shake mine, which took me further by surprise. No one, and I do mean no one, ever wanted to shake my hand. It wasn't that people were afraid or grossed out by me, just that they never took the time to know me that well. A handshake may not seem like much to anybody else, but to me, it was a sign of acknowledgement. After our handshake, she turned her focus away from me and started to listen to what the math teacher was saying about how calculus has more to do with the workforce than what the students presumed. I didn't listen. I, for the rest of the class period, focused on her, the first girl to acknowledge me. Thankfully, I was invisible to others. Otherwise, they would have insulted me for looking right at her the way I did. Since then, I've always thought of her, even when attending the other classes that the school has saw fit to put me in, even when I was out of school and home alone. My parents were the party-going type. I rarely saw them. Only in the mornings when they would hazily stumble out of their bedroom to make coffee and eat and go to their respective jobs, which they never explained to me. I sometimes wondered if they even had jobs, partying like they do every night, but they had to be getting that money somewhere, right? We never talked. They never took the time out of their busy lives to talk to their only son. From what I can tell, they don't hate me. They just don't seem to care less. And besides from being my parents, had no reason to. I never caused or got into any trouble. All they would do is leave extra food for me to eat in the fridge and cabinets, so they did know I existed. Before turning 16 in 3 weeks, they always got babysitters to watch over me. I had all types, ranging from sweet to flat out rude, but since I always stayed in my room, I never bothered them, so I never gave them a reason to bother me. I had no friends. I did try to make some last year when I moved to this quiet town in northern Michigan, but I'm just not an interesting person. I'm just shy and quiet. But it's okay. I never had any friends to begin with. My family ignored me, and so did my relatives whenever the rare opportunity came that they came over to visit. The teachers, the authority figures, never bothered to try to get to know me, besides from giving me my grades and assignments that they give to everyone. No one has ever tried to get to know me, to understand, to talk, and as I've become a teenager, I've gotten used to it. But now, she acknowledged me. She shook hands with me. She introduced herself to me before even doing so with others, even the teachers. I watched her whenever I could find her. I never took my eyes off her if I could help it. Seeing her introduce herself to other people, making friends, even talking to the main jocks, it never bothered me. I'm not the jealous type, and was at first willing to share. 3 months has passed, and I was still awestruck whenever I saw her. The first thing to ever spark my interests would always brighten my day whenever I'd hear her speak in that soft, cheerful voice. I wanted her. Call it an obsession, lust, longing, I don't care. I wanted her. The one and only thing to ever lighten my stale, boring life had to become it permanently. I wasn't planning to force her in any way. I'm not that crazy. Since I've always heard that love is best when it occurs naturally, I need to find a way to make her feel the same way. But how? Then I saw it. Just a few feet from the love of my life, I saw it. And man, did it give me hope. It was the poster to promote the upcoming prom next week, which I've usually ignored, knowing that there was no point in me going. But because of Margaret, I wanted to. Because of her, I now have a goal to be her date to the prom. Because of that, I did something that I haven't tried for many years. When I was home, I talked to my parents.
Mom?
Yes, sweetie?
She asked.
Can you give me a tuxedo for the prom next week? I'm going to get a date.
There should be one in the basement that used to be your cousin's.
My mother replied.
It should fit you just fine.
Okay, thanks.
Besides for the buildup of dust and having to brush off a cobweb, it did fit. It fit well. Besides from the bow tie, which was a light green, it was all black. I normally wouldn't have minded, but I wanted something to oppose the colors of her dress. I overheard her talking to the teacher about getting a yellow dress, and to me, brown is the opposite color. The reason why I wanted to wear the opposite colors is so that it'll clash with her cheerful personality. I know it doesn't make that much sense. I'm not too sure why I even thought that. Just spur of the moment. With that knowledge at hand, I wanted to know what I should get her. I have yet to ask her to go to prom, and it was just 2 days away. I needed to get her something, anything, that would make her want to go to the prom with me, and something to help her understand even a little of how I felt. I thought of the color of the ribbon she wore the first day we've met, and figured that I would give her a white rose tomorrow after school. But how to get it? Then, for the first time in my life, I had a crazy idea. Something that, if not for the love I was feeling for Margaret, I'd never dream of considering. So I waited till 7 p.m. I executed it. I took my father's keys to his Jeep. Besides from getting groceries, they never used it. Their friends always came to pick them up to go out partying. If not, they'd get a cab. The keys were hidden in a compartment under their dresser, along with other fun stuff that they should be thankful for that I never turned them in for. I didn't know how to drive, but I've watched people drive in movies. Shouldn't be too hard, right? I knew where to go. I looked it up in the phone book. Just 12 miles east. on the other side of town. The car was full of gas, so everything was good. I pulled out of the driveway with ease. It took me a few tries to turn the old vehicle around, but after knocking over a few trash cans, I did it. I heard my neighbors cuss me out, but I didn't care. The floral store was my destination, and nothing was going to stop me. Without hesitation, I stepped on the gas and floored it, going as fast as I could. Thankfully, this town was never busy at this time, so I didn't have to worry about crashing in obstacles, whether object or person. I didn't have to worry about the police stopping me for speeding and running stop signs, and the only 3 lights in town. They and the fire department were all preoccupied with the fire that I started back home. Few minutes prior to my destination, I stopped and hid behind some overgrown bushes in the park, waiting for the fire alarms back at the house to alert them. And sure enough, I saw them drive by urgently to the destination that used to be my home. I didn't need a home. I could care less about my parents and what they thought. I didn't need material possessions or a home. All I needed was her. Despite the concern on the floral shop owner's face over the fire across town, I managed to convince him they keep from closing the store for one last customer. I got the rose. It was cheaper than I thought it would be, though I was willing to spend as much as possible with my father's card, which was now mine to use until I saw fit. Deciding to park in and sleep in an abandoned barn house just a mile outside of town, and thankfully fixing up the cooler in the trunk, I put the gift that would make Margaret mine forever gently in it, and slept in the back seat. Thank God I had an electric watch that had an alarm on it, otherwise I would have overslept. Thank God the school was only a mile and a half west from where I slept. I couldn't shower like usual, but I planned ahead, bringing deodorant, along with my clothes and saved up cash. I changed out of my tuxedo and folded it, placing it gently on the front seat to be used tomorrow. Walking briskly, it took me about an hour to get there in good time, just 10 minutes before school started. The school was abuzz over the fire, and how it even spread across the yard and in the 2 next-door neighbors' homes. Took the firemen 3 whole hours to put the whole thing out. I nearly laughed hearing that. I only used 3 gallons of gasoline that my dad had stored up in the garage closet, though I did turn on the gas on the stove before lighting my room. It didn't take long for them to figure out whose house that was, since my parents, besides from being beyond furious over being homeless, wanted to know where I was and if I was safe. Since when did they care? Because of their concern, the school, for the first time, wanted to know what happened and actually had the nerve to come talk to me.
Were you home when it happened?
Where were you if you weren't home then?
Was it intentional? Did you piss someone off?
All such pathetic attempts to get info. I was disgusted, honestly, seeing them actually try to acknowledge me, seeing I was okay, asking all kinds of questions, trying to figure out who or what started it, where I've been. It was so annoying. Are you okay? I recognized the voice coming from behind while I was trying to eat right off the bat, as you'd expect.
Hi, Margaret. How are you doing?
People have been asking you the same thing all day. Your house burned down. Aren't you upset?
Upset? Over what?
She looked at me as if I'd lost my mind, which confused me slightly. And then she said, about your house burning down? Your stuff all gone? I didn't want her to know how I felt about her just yet, and I needed some way to present the, I forgot the rose! Shit! Feeling beyond stupid over leaving behind the one thing that'll make Margaret love me,
I was lost in thought, trying to think of an alternative. But what?
Andy Wallace, please come to the principal's office immediately.
Now what? Fearing the worst, I got up off of my table, leaving the love of my life behind without answering her questions. This better be good. Going into the principal's office, I spotted my parents sitting at the desk, along with the principal, Mrs. Ramon. They know. No, it's too soon.
Andy, last night Mr. Knight, the owner of the floral shop, said you'd came by in your father's Jeep, wearing a tuxedo, to get a white rose. Care to explain?
Nearly infuriated over something so trivial, interrupting my talk with Margaret, I told them that I was in my room when someone in a mask broke into the house. By the time I got out to investigate the noise, the big man already poured gasoline all over the living room and turned the gas on, threatening to turn the burner on and light it up. Being scared, I took off running and taking the keys, took off in my father's Jeep to look for my parents. After I was done, the principal said,
There are holes in your story. Your father explained to me, and the police for that matter, that he hid his keys so that he'd never lose them by accident. And this big masked man that you speak of hasn't been seen. And Mrs. Garrison, your neighbor to the right, whose house caught fire seconds after the fire spread, saw you walk out of your house, as calm as could be, and knocked over several trash cans before driving east like a bat out of hell. Other neighbors have seen the same thing. And one last note, the firemen determined the start of the fire was in your room. So can you please tell us what really happened before we get the police involved? Like the whereabouts of your father's Jeep?
I was dumbstruck and also infuriated. They figured it out that fast, and now they're going to get the police involved. They had the actual nerve, the dare, to get in the way of the only thing that gave me light, to give me hope, my Margaret. There was nothing I could say. There was nothing I wanted to say to any of them. Only Margaret mattered to me. Before either of my parents or the principal could do or say anything else, I bolted out of there, ignoring the yells, the voices, and any noise, period. I needed a plan. I had to get out and regroup my thoughts. For the first time in my life, I was scared, though my newly formed fear would be replaced with anger. Why, God? Why did you let this happen? I've never done anything wrong, and the only times I did were out of love. What's wrong with going the extra mile for love, especially for someone like me, who's never been loved, never been acknowledged in his whole life, until she came. The who gave him something, a light, someone who actually meant something to. Just why? I don't remember much after that. It's all a blur. I remember pushing, yelling, screaming, people trying to stop me, but I was too fast. Someone did come in front of me and tried to stop me, but I had a pencil on me. I didn't care at that point. I took it out and I stabbed the bitch until she fell, covered in blood. More screaming, more yells, didn't care. Had to get out and hide back at the barn, reorganize a plan. It's too late for the prom. Shit! It's too late! That realization nearly broke my state of blurred determination of escaping, making me stop in my tracks. Sirens flashing red and blue lights. The police are here. More people, more obstacles in my way. The fuck am I going to do? Besides running into the woods, I don't remember how I escaped. I just remembered waking up shaking and drenched in sweat, near my father's Jeep. I got up, looking around to make sure I was alone. Thankfully, I was. Thank you, God. Forgive me for my doubts while I was escaping. You do want to see me and Margaret together. You do want our love to flourish and prosper. But how to do it? Prom was out of the question, or was it? I checked the time on my slightly filthy watch. It was still 5 hours until prom starts. School wasn't even over yet. I still have a chance. But I was filthy. How? Deodorant! Duh. Taking a shirt that I haven't worn yet, I wiped the sweat off me the best I could, so as to fit into the tuxedo. The rose. The rose! Thankfully, it was still in the cooler where I left it, looking as beautiful as when I bought it. I can finally... But wait! The people would notice. Those fuckers would contact my parents, or worse, the authorities. I couldn't risk that. But you need to see Margaret. You need to give her the rose. Think about all you've been through, and because of it, she'll love you. Yes, that's right. Effort does result in love. You also see it in the movies. Women who are at first resistant will fall for the guy who does the most for her, even if it is considered wrong. It's nearly time. Go get the girl. So, getting dressed, I eagerly drove east as fast as this old Jeep would allow. This scenery seemed different from before, but I didn't care. I knew I was going to the prom. I knew she'd be waiting for me. If people are meant to be together, then no matter what happens or what one person does, they'll always come back together, whether the others liked it or not. It took me a while, but I made it. Despite being after 9, the place was surprisingly deserted. And best of all, no cops. Thank you, God. I walked in, place looking a lot smaller than anticipated. No tables, just benches. It's all for you. Where is she? Shouldn't she be here waiting for... There she is! Lying on a table with both hands on her chest, the dress she wore looked old and was green with some red. Love is full of surprises. Nervous at first, I walked over to her. She was as silent as could be. It bothered me at first. Is she sleeping? Why? She's supposed to be here waiting, not sleeping. Did she forget? This is so awkward. Wait. Awkward. I finally get it. Joy began to spring forth as I realized the situation. It's a date! First dates are always like this, right? I didn't even need to give her the rose. Again, thank you, God.
Margaret?
She said nothing. Didn't even move.
I'm glad that you finally decided to date me. It makes me so happy.
Tears began going down my face. For the first time since I was born, I cried. I just couldn't help myself. The beauty that lay before, unmoving and silent. The opportunity to finally found love. I have it. It's all right here.
Thank you for giving me something I never thought I'd had.
She finally awoke, and with that same cheerful voice, spoke. I exist only for you. You're the reason why I came to this town. You're my reason for living, too. I wiped away my tears, being overjoyed over what I was hearing.
Really?
Yes. Now let us come together forever. With no second thought, I knew what was to be, and I began to slowly caress her soft.
Hey, kid! The hell do you think you're doing?
Shit!
Looking up, Andy saw a large man who looked like a guard. As to why a guard would be necessary for a typical high school prom, Andy didn't take a second to even question it, since he knew something could go wrong. So saying goodbye to his love, promising to come back for her, he sprinted back out of the exit before the guard and his partner, who came into the room late, could catch him. He got back into his father's Jeep and drove off, leaving the two guards behind.
Ah, shit. The funeral director will fire us for coming in late.
Well, he didn't look like he stole anything.
It doesn't matter if he stole anything, Paul. Mr. Harrisburg will chew our asses off for letting some punk break in, and the doors weren't even locked.
Calm down, Charlie. Harrisburg may be cranky, but he ain't gonna go ballistic over something like that. He'll chew us out for sure, but he won't fire us. We're the only security guards for hire in this backwater town.
Okay, I suppose you're right, but didn't that kid look familiar?
Yeah, now that you mention it, yeah. You don't think he's that crazy kid that burned down his own house, and when he was confronted for it at school, he took off running, then killed that girl Margaret Stanton or something, before running into the woods and somehow escaping the cops, do you?
Hell, it might have been, though. I'm wondering why the hell he'd be here, 16 miles away from his own town. I can understand wanting to get away, don't get me wrong, but who the hell breaks into a funeral home just to fuck a mannequin? Honestly.
Thank you for visiting the Panic Room. You have successfully made it to the next portion of your tour. Please stay tuned for your next prompt. Click the like button and subscribe to receive notifications for when the next portion of your tour is ready to join. Thank you for watching. Don't let the panic drown you.